Hello, Herman. Thank you for joining us and sharing your knowledge.
Hello, Rena. Thank you. It's a great idea to have this discussion. It makes the topic much easier to understand. Welcome to the students. So, let's talk about the basics of Incoterms.
Yes, welcome, everyone. Today, we're diving into the world of Incoterms. Now, before you panic, no, this isn't some secret shipping code that only logistics professionals can understand. Incoterms are actually designed to make trade easier, not more confusing.
Exactly. Incoterms, or International Commercial Terms, are a set of standardized rules developed by the International Chamber of Commerce, ICC. They clarify who is responsible for what when it comes to shipping goods across borders. What worries me is that many people only have a basic knowledge of Incoterms without truly understanding the hows and whys. You need proper understanding in order to make the best decision on which Incoterm to use for a shipment, because your choice depends on many factors.
And that's important because international trade can get messy. Imagine you're shipping goods from South Africa to Germany. Who arranges transport? Who pays for insurance? What happens if the goods are damaged in transit? Without a clear agreement, the buyer and seller could end up arguing over who takes the loss.
That's where Incoterms step in. They define who handles costs, risks, and logistics at each stage of the shipping process. The latest version, Incoterms 2020, is what we use today. It's also important to remember that Incoterms define the point of transfer of risk and responsibility, and these are not always the same. Your sales contract must include and clearly define the specific Incoterm used, because Incoterms are not a complete contract on their own.
This is extremely important. One cannot assume the other party fully understands the chosen Incoterm. If something goes wrong, the party that understands and applies it correctly will have the advantage and will not lose money if the matter ends up in court.
Yes, people must remember that only a properly drafted contract can be legally enforced. The real objective is to do business, not to end up in costly disputes. Professional handling builds trust, and more business can follow. That's why it's critical for both parties to understand their responsibilities fully.
Exactly. Contracts must be transparent so both parties clearly understand them. Remember, Incoterms cover only delivery responsibilities. They don't dictate payment terms, product quality, or ownership of goods. Those must be handled separately in the sales contract.
Another common misunderstanding is that Incoterms automatically apply to every contract. They don't. Both buyer and seller must explicitly agree on the Incoterm being used. And it's crucial to state it clearly, including the location. For example, don't just write FOB. Write FOB Durban Port to avoid confusion. With each Incoterm, we'll give you examples of proper wording for contracts, but it's always your responsibility to make sure it complies with legal requirements.
Right. And speaking of locations, Incoterms are divided into two main categories. Terms for any mode of transport: road, rail, air, or sea. Terms specifically for maritime and inland waterway transport.
We'll go into detail later, but for now, just remember, some Incoterms apply universally, while others are strictly for sea freight. You cannot use a maritime Incoterm for air freight. It simply doesn't make sense. Also, international Incoterms cannot automatically be used for domestic trade because they cannot override a country's local laws.
Another thing to keep in mind, just because an Incoterm exists doesn't mean it's suitable for your situation. Some Incoterms shift almost all the responsibility to one party, which might not be practical. Choosing the right one for your transaction is key. Using the wrong term could mean higher costs, like in our FOB versus CFR example in the introduction.
Exactly. But don't worry, we'll walk through each one step by step in later sessions. For now, just keep in mind, Incoterms help make international trade clear, fair, and efficient by defining who does what at each stage.
And if you ever feel overwhelmed, just think of Incoterms as a written agreement based on internationally recognized rules that ensures everyone knows their responsibilities.
Well said. That's why it's vital to understand Incoterms properly. Misunderstanding them can result in unnecessary costs or legal issues. Courts may also consider circumstances beyond the Incoterm itself. For example, when dealing with hazardous materials, the seller must provide proper classification documents to the terminal. Under FOB, the buyer makes the booking and instructs the shipping line. But if the seller fails to issue the correct terminal order, the court may rule against them, regardless of the Incoterm. The law has many gray areas. That's why it's important not only to know the Incoterms, but to understand them in context with each specific scenario.
Yes, and that's why students must learn more than just what Incoterms specify. They need to understand the reasoning behind them. Thank you for your input, Herman. I think the students now have a better grasp of the subject.
Thanks, everyone. Enjoy the rest of the course. By taking it step by step, you'll become confident in this field and be able to make the right choices.